I'm Eva Oh, and this is the Teakink podcast. I've been a dominatrix since 2011, and I would like to spill the tea on my life. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the Teakink podcast.
Thank you so much.
This is
Cherry Velour.
Cherry Velour, who is maybe more familiar with cameras than even I am.
Maybe. I'm not tremendously familiar, but maybe more than you.
Yeah. What have you been doing in front of a camera?
Oh gosh, nothing crazy. I torture porn.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of other porns. God, have I ever done anything that's not involving torture or porn?
What is torture porn? And how does it differ to porn?
I guess for me, because if the focus is the torture, and I don't,
as opposed to the penetration,
as opposed to penetration and like default sex, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess maybe that also comes from my own relationship with torture and sadomasochism not explicitly being a sexual one as well. So in my mind, I really can create that distinction. But it's similar to like if you're familiar with insects and like insects porn, that kind of torture.
Yeah. Insects, INSEX, correct?
INSEX,
was something from the 90s that you can Google.
Yeah. When you're not around your parents or your work.
Private browser suggested. Yeah. But so torture porn, what was the first?
I only really made one proper one, which was with a feminist porn studio in Copenhagen when I was living there, called Bedside. I guess they're like a collective, a porn collective. It was I was very lucky to be able to do it. All the other stuff that they had made was really sweet and like queer and cute and, you know, pastel colors. And
how would you describe yours?
I would say it's like rusty metal scraping against flesh, and it's pretty horrible. It's reminiscent of like at moments martyrs, at moments like not quite as campy as Hostel. It's very simple. I wanted the vibe to be like a torturer taking a film like of what they're doing so that they can show it to potential buyers of me as the product on the black market. That was kind of the vibe.
Okay. Did you write it?
I mean, it was a collaboration, but it was very much my baby.
Okay. Yeah. And do you think it was a good advertisement?
You know, I think in the end, I have a friend actually, a mutual friend of ours, Kyle, who wants to redo the sound for me, because I think the people who ended up doing the sound in the end, they did a really good job, but they kind of changed the tone of what I had in my mind for it. So it reads a lot more theatrical in the end, and it injects too much emotion into it, where I want it to be really just like cold and ambivalent and distant. But hopefully at some point Kyle will finish that, and then I'll do a London screening.
What do you play in these scenes normally? What is cold and ambivalent music?
It probably just like nothing. Like just the sound of like
metal.
Ambient sound, almost white noise, as if it's distortion from you know, the microphone's not working very well. One thing I really want is there's certain parts where I'm screaming so loud and you can just see it. Like you can see my neck bulging and everything. And I sort of want there to be no audio in those moments. So it's just silent and you're just watching me scream, but without any sound.
Amazing. You could sell the audio track separately.
Yeah. Easy. Yeah.
So how close would you say that piece of work is to how you like to experience things outside of the film or out of a camera context?
I think in that film in particular, it was a very unique experience where I was able to basically play out a fantasy scene in front of cameras. It wasn't a film like others where there's, you know, cutting and starting and stopping and repositioning. They kind of just said go, and we filmed me for 4 hours getting tortured, which was just amazing. And I asked for that specifically, where I was like, I'd really like, as much as I can, to stay in the headspace the whole time. So the way it's filmed actually has the camera crew and like, well, the whole crew is there in balaclavas, and you can see them moving around in the film. So there's nobody who's like behind the scenes. It's the whole crew is part of the torture crew.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can do some post-interview research.
Yeah.
Research.
It's research. It's just research. Yeah.
Amazing. That sounds super fun.
Yeah.
And have you had any experience that was aligned in any way?
Other than the film?
Other than the film.
Yeah, I've had some. Because, well, what it was someone torturing me very coldly, very much just about the pain. And I did have a play partner for a while who was very aligned with that, was very into being a cold torturer, where it wasn't really about sex. It was just about being a force of suffering, if you will. And I loved it. I love playing with fear and the extremity of what you can do with your body and how far you can push your body, especially when you allow yourself to go into these very intense headspaces. So I've done some of it, not as much as I'd like, but it's also hard because you really need the right person to do that with. So
what's the right person?
The right person is, well, for one, someone that you just have the right play chemistry with, someone who's experienced and confident with what they're doing, someone you can communicate with easily. And for me, it can't be that they want to do it because I want them to do it. I want to feel that they need to do it, that they want, you know what I mean? Like
They're
it's
invested.
I don't want a service top. Like, I want someone who's like
drawn to that space.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone who's like, I am allowing myself to go to this place I normally have to keep under wraps. And with you, I'm able to go to that space. Like that's what I want.
How did you discover that set of emotions, the fear?
How did I discover it in the scene?
That you wanted it.
Oh, that I wanted it. Oh, that's a good question. I wonder if it is something that I came to naturally or I always knew. I think I started playing really intensely with fear only in, I say only, like in the past 5 years. Before that, I played a lot with intense sadomasochism. And yeah, I don't really know. That's a really good question.
So like more action oriented than emotion oriented.
Yeah, but I think that was just because I hadn't had a chance to experience it. I guess.
Do you remember the first time you felt the fear and was like, I liked that?
Yeah, actually. I did some intense DS, like CNC play before, but I had one partner where we met and we just had this insane chemistry, and immediately our dynamic became entirely CNC play, just like
consensual.
Yeah, consensual non-consent. And
how did you get to that point? Was anything spoken?
Not really. That's the thing. I mean, we met one night shortly after I moved to Denmark, and we just ended up talking all night, and there was just this incredible intensity. And he ended up biting my neck at some point in the night really hard. And it just tumbled out of us, this dynamic. And so every time we had sex, it would be a really intense consensual non-consent scene, but it would change every time. Sometimes it was with a certain narrative of being like, a version of Daddy Dom little girl, but instead I'm like a little girl that's been trapped in a bunker for my whole life. And, you know, it's that kind of a dynamic. Or he's like an awkward, nerdy guy who's obsessed with me and is my stalker and like breaks into my house.
So did these narratives emerge spontaneously, or did you talk about what the narrative might be that day?
We would talk about it. But kind of like people almost talking about
what they might eat for dinner.
Yeah,
or maybe we'll have this, or it could be that.
I think with more childlike excitement than that. It was almost like we were deciding what we wanted to do for our Dungeons and Dragons game. You know what I mean? And be like, oh, and then maybe this happens, or like, what if we did this? And I think one of the most premeditated ones was I went to a bar on my own, and we had arranged that he would come half an hour later or something like that. And we would pretend that we didn't know each other and like naturally start flirting at the bar. And, you know, he would take me home with him, and then everything would go south. What was really cute was we did that. We were like naturally flirting, and I went to the bathroom, and there was another woman in the toilet with me, and she said, oh, you're flirting with that cute blonde guy, right? And I was like, and she said, get his number, but don't go home with him. And I was like, oh my God, if what's about to happen were real, you would have been so right. Yeah, it was really good. But we played a lot with fear in that case. And I think part of it was, that was a time in my life where so much was really spontaneous. I had just moved to a new country, and so I was kind of high on all of these endorphins. And I think my relationship with him went quite fast, too fast. And so we were doing this intense play, and I didn't really know him. So there was, I was never unsafe, I know now. But looking back, I know a part of what made it so good was the fact that when he was choking me out, I was like, I don't actually know you, and you might be insane, and you might kill me.
And you liked that?
And I loved that about it. I really loved that about it.
Do you ever think about why, or would you rather not?
No, I think about it all the time. I think for me, a lot of all of this play, whether it's fear play, sadomasochism, everything is about an intense emotion that forces presence. So something that really makes me here right now. I spend so much time in my life in my head thinking about the past or the future, or trying to take care of everybody else. And it forces me to be here. And I think fear does that as well. Fear is also a space that can push me farther. I think is only so far you can go with comfort, or with, I mean, you can go quite far with pleasure, but pleasure is kind of a scary place for me, ironically. But with fear, it just
pushes you.
It pushes you. And disgust as well. Disgust
with
is
yourself, or with the scenario?
With this scenario. And I guess with myself, but I don't really get disgusted with myself. I never get shame in that regard, or humiliation in that regard. But disgust is one I've actually played with even less than fear, that I'm interested in. Yeah. Oh man, this one's really going to put your listeners off, but
depends.
I mean, yeah, it's I that one play partner I was talking about, not the one that we would do all the CNC, but where it was like my torturer, often talked about doing scenes involving like maggots and things like that. We never got around to it, but he was very serious. So.
What would the maggots be doing?
Whether they would be in my mouth, in my pussy, just like on and around me, leeches as well. Yeah, we never got around to it, but.
What disgusts you?
Maggots disgust me. Just plain and simple. Something about them. I'm not squeamish about bugs, but I remember I have 2 cats, and they have wet food, and they have like these pouches that go in a bag that that we like send back to recycle.
Mhm.
And the first time I had this, I wasn't washing out the pouches as well as I should have. And one time I went to like pick up the bag to seal it, and I saw one little, just one, but one little pulsing maggot. And I nearly threw the whole thing across the room, and I could not touch it. I had to get somebody else to deal with it. Something about them just like
Torture porn number 2.
oh, I mean, you can put hooks in my skin. You can like hang me from the ceiling. You can threaten blindness with needles by my eyes. You can brand me with a hot iron. But you put maggots
Something
near
squishy.
me. Something
all
squishy.
the metal things seem to be fine.
Yeah, that and cold water. I'm really bad at cold water.
Like jumping into cold water.
Yeah, like
Or
cold
if
water
it's a
swimming.
Cold bath or something.
I mean, even a cold, depending,
ice
but
bath.
like cold water swimming, I struggle with tremendously. Those are my
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you struggle with in terms of pleasure? What does pleasure mean?
Oh man. So this is a journey I'm on like right now.
Pleasure like a warm bath, or pleasure like
I mean, even a warm bath, but especially sexual pleasure.
okay.
Sexual pleasure is really challenging for me.
Okay.
And
So when you're engaging in all of the torture and all of these things that excite you, it's never gets you off sexually?
It does. It does. And it does access me it does access my sexuality.
And you wouldn't call that a form of pleasure?
I would call that a form of pleasure. I think what I'm referring to is more strictly speaking like sensual pleasure or or you know, receiving receiving pleasure for the sake of pleasure, because it gets me off. But
receiving pleasure, like getting
like
head?
getting head, or you know,
why do you have to like that?
I don't have to. I don't have to.
Yeah.
But I'm interested in. It's not just like where I get it and I'm like, oh, I don't really care about this. It's like it makes me uncomfortable, and so that's why I'm interested in it. Because
you want to be tortured through that, even.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, because that's the question. Is I mean, I've psychoanalyzed the hell out of this, but
I'm so bored right now. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing, because it's my it's a comfort zone to get beat, and it's a comfort zone to bleed. It's out of my comfort zone for someone to just want to pleasure me. I know. Is that I'm talking about putting maggots in me? Yeah, and I'm like, ooh,
I live more in the maggot land. So
yeah.
You're not. Yeah,
we're not weird here. We're amongst good company.
Like just head for itself, unless somebody's exceptional, it's always a slightly boring experience.
Definitely. Well, I couldn't just have head for the sake of head. I think what I've been discovering about myself is I need narrative. I need direction. And I do need some sort of a sensory overload. So just receiving head because it feels good, that doesn't work for me. But if it's within the context of a sensory overload and like, or being put in a position where I'm so heightened and then receiving it, it could work. But even then, I mean, that's why lately I've been getting into fisting. Finally, I've never been fisted until a couple months ago. For the first time, I was like, oh, this could work for me, because it's kind of scary. It's intense. It's powerful. It's painful at times, and it's someone literally just like punching your guts. So that's my version of pleasure.
Head
and head. Yeah.
I think I'm only just realizing the similarity to what you're mentioning for myself. I think, but I invest in the emotional almost drama, for lack of a better phrasing, around it. I don't necessarily create scenarios aside from the power dynamic scenario.
Absolutely, but
and the fear inherent sometimes to that, and the awe and the nervousness at the very least that I receive from someone. And I guess without that, it falls flat. It's really boring. It's really like, And sometimes I can, after meditation, like I have a bit more of a hold on trying to just sit with a sensation and letting that speak to me.
But that's a narrative that you've given it as well, in a sense, isn't it?
But
And
anyway.
that's what I mean by narrative, though, because it's not about role-playing narrative. It's an arc, you know, it's an emotional arc. So, and without that, there is no sex.
Do you think everyone has this emotional narrative arc, but just in varying configurations?
I honestly don't think so. I'm not saying that it's not uncommon. I think most people have some versions of it. But I have met people where they're just like, I just like to fuck because it feels good and I don't really care about narrative. But it might just be that they need much, much less. Or the fact that they just don't have a narrative is part of it for them. But I have met people, and it's actually been a problem in relationships that I've had, where a partner just wants to fuck, and I'm like, how can you just want to fuck? Like, I need something more than that.
And when you are in relationship, is there anything inherent, like a power dynamic normally, or is that only within play?
I would like there to be. I spent 5 years in Denmark, and 4 of those years completely single and alone. And that was mostly because there's absolutely nobody in Denmark that I found suitable for a relationship. So funny enough, I don't have that much experience in my recent adult life in relationships. I would love to have like a 24/7 dynamic with someone who is my partner and is, you know, my full-time partner, and also is my dom or my torturer, or and creating that narrative in my life. I feel like a 24/7 dynamic would be so good for me to just have a focal point to create structure around in my life. Yeah.
I think then it could also just give that constant narrative.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Which
and
I think I'm living by.
Exactly. Well, and also because when you have a DS dynamic, the beautiful thing about it is it doesn't really go stale because it's a project that you're working on together. It's something,
if everybody is invested.
Exactly. Yeah. If everyone's invested, then it's a project. It's this development. It's, okay, I'm learning something about you, and now we'll try this thing and see how that changes you. You know, I want a dynamic to change me. I don't want to come out of something the same person I was going in my ideal world and my ideal dynamic.
Are you looking for this?
Yeah. Hey. Call me. No, I am.
Cherry Velour.
Yeah, I am. If you're you know, a sadistic butch top, because I'm done with men. I'm done fucking with men. For now.
If it's like a few years behind that you're listening to this episode, maybe check back in.
See where I'm at. Well, no, I think what I've realized, at least right now, this could always change, but I in terms of dynamics with men that I've had in the past, the only successful sexual dynamics I've had with men have been when they've been torturers. And beyond that, I've really struggled with sexual dynamics with men. And I think an element, like I'm realizing I think I'm gayer than I thought. And I think an element of that is when I'm in the headspace of being like tortured or in that CNC dynamic, the added brutality of it being like a man and patriarchal shit that goes into it and these power dynamics makes it work for me. But as soon as it's outside of an intense like torture CNC dynamic, I struggle a lot sexually with men, whereas I don't as much with women. And I'm generalizing, but I'm talking about like cis men and non-cis men. Yeah.
And funnily for me, like I'm happy to bottom.
Yeah.
Especially in an exhibitionistic sort of context where it benefits everyone. But I almost can't do it at all with cishet men.
Yeah.
For probably the reasons that make it even more
Yeah.
torturous for you.
Yeah. Exactly. Because it's a humiliating thing in a way. And
I just don't want to give them that
you don't want to give that
extra
to them.
honor because they've had so much access.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would like to, I think, on some, because I respect some of them, but it's like this weird political thing that lives in your psyche somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that
works for you.
That thing has worked for me in the past. I feel like now it's working for me less, especially because before I really struggled to meet a woman that could dominate me in the ways that I wanted. But now I have, and I've had that experience. So I realized my hypothesis that I needed a man to dominate me was complete garbage. And so I'm done with that.
What changed from not being able to find it to finding it?
Just meeting someone who could.
Is that like a location thing? Because I feel like I have a lot more access now that I'm in London.
Yeah, I think anywhere is better location and like better access than it was in Denmark. Yeah, definitely.
Too few people.
Yes, well, it's too few freaks and like too few of everything. And I think especially as an American kinky freak like me, I was just so on the opposite side of the social spectrum than it was in Denmark. But
what's the social need there?
People are very reserved. They're very private. They tend to be friends with the people that they've been friends with since they were in kindergarten. And they're curious sexually. But I didn't find that I found in most spaces, not just when it comes to sex or kink, they really lacked a fire. I felt that it was a very content society. And so that passion of like, I need this thing was lacking in a lot of spaces, whether it was in sex spaces or kink spaces. I think in art, the funny thing is, what I often said about Denmark was they made great design, but not very good art. Because I find that art is something that comes out of conflict. And whether that's inner conflict or conflict around you, like great art comes from discomfort and conflict. And great design comes from being able to sit and iterate on a thing over and over again and look at it kind of objectively with a clear mind.
Having the space to do it.
Exactly. And I think in Denmark, people's needs are very met. They're pretty content. There's not a lot of adversity for the vast majority. And so there's not much friction to create subversive, transgressive art, but a lot of time to make really good chairs. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
German.
Like that, yeah. Well,
there's a lot of tension.
There's a lot of tension, you see.
Is there enough tension for you in the UK?
I think yes and no. There's definitely tension. But I think what I've been struggling with in the UK is it feels like this is a country of bottoms and subs. At least in my experience lately. I think something, I might be wrong about this. I don't know. People are going to come into my DMs about it. But I feel that there's something about the culture that people feel... Oh, I'm touching my microphone. I'm going to end up... It's going to be like...
Oh, good. ASMR.
Yeah, a bit of ASMR. Technical difficulty. Hope my necklace isn't like banging on it as well. Cool. There's something about the culture here that feels like, I don't know. There's an element of wanting to minimize yourself, not wanting to take up space, and really feeling valid. How would I say it? Being told what to do and doing the right thing at the right time is a very validating experience, or I don't know if validating is the right word, but
That's what they're used to?
It's what they're used to, but it's valued in the
okay.
society. That's what I was looking for.
Mhm.
Whereas in America, there's a high value on being a strong personality and being in many ways like a domineering personality. And I do think a lot of the time, the role that you play in the majority of your life, you often want to play the opposite role in your like kink dynamics. Not for everybody, but that's kind of a trend I often see. But the thing that makes you feel valued and the thing that plays to your own self-worth, I think also really informs the role that is deeply satisfying for you in kink. Everybody's individuals with this and it's always different. But I feel that people feel deep satisfaction from being told what to do and being submissive in British culture. But this is just a hypothesis I'm beginning to kind of like, just thoughts I've been having. I'm by no means saying this is how it is. I don't know. I'm curious what you think about that.
About British culture and there being an abundance of submissives for me to have my way with.
Yeah, exactly. Which sounds great for you.
They can't afford me.
Yeah.
Because they have their culture, but they also have their cost of living.
Oh my God, I know.
It's
terrible. Poor things.
We have the internet and travel.
Yeah, we do.
But do I think that a culture correlates? I think that there are submissive people everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of them.
Well, I think especially today, because the society that we live in is one that demands a lot of our executive function, demands a lot of our decision making. It's constant stimulation, sensory overload. And what submission allows us is a chance to just shut completely off. And so I also think just globally, people are craving submission more because we live in this world that demands so much from us, blasts us with information and says, you also need to be your own boss. You need to sell yourself. Your whole identity is a brand, you know, and not just for people where that's literally their job, but even just a person, anybody
needs to apply for a job.
It needs to apply for a job
or have a public profile.
Exactly. Social media and everything. I just think people crave to be in a space where they don't have to be anything except what somebody else exactly tells them to be. So it feels like doms are a dying breed, which is sad for all of us. Yeah.
You think? I don't know. I guess I live on the other end of the continuum, and I'm happy that it can offer people that emotional space, but selfishly, it's just a personal gratification. That makes me move towards it. There's nothing altruistic about it for me. I think there are good outcomes. But
you're my favorite kind of dom. That's what I meant, you know, where I was like, I want a dom where
they just inherently
have to do it. Like they have to do it in the way that I have to be shut down, you know, like so you're a very special breed. And there are others.
Actually, this is interesting because I've been interviewing some subs as a part of this whole podcast thing. And the other day I had one who said that they've had a lot of partners in the scene here, but a lot of the times it's the people who will access the power.
Yeah.
It's not they are inherently always that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not that there's anything better or worse, but until that moment, I was so stupid and didn't realize
that it was
people
different.
are just like tapping in.
Yeah.
You know, I don't understand. I am one thing.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, I'm someone, because I am a switch. And I really enjoy dominance and I enjoy topping as well. But the distinction I often make is I find dominating and topping satisfying, while I find submission and like heavy bottoming to be a release.
Necessary. I will die without it.
Well, yeah, or it feels like I will die. You know, I mean, I've survived.
Crumble. I get angry.
Yeah,
I get really, really angry.
I get really tense, and I get really like, and I think that's why I come across like I'm this absolutely foaming at the mouth, desperate sub these days. But it's just because my cup for being a top and being a dom is very filled, because I have plenty of opportunities for that. But also, it's not the thing that fuels me. And as well, it's this thing where I could always sub and never feel like, oh, I'm really missing topping or doming. And I need to top or dom before I can sub again. But I do think on the other side of that, if I haven't bottomed and I haven't subbed for a long time, I lose my desire to be a dom, because I kind of need that to fill me. Yeah.
You think about all of these aspects in great detail. Has that just been the pattern of how you engage with your life?
Do I think about everything else in my life with the same depth that I think about kink? Not as much, but in general, I'm an overthinker, if you can't tell. But
Maybe you're speaking to one, so I'm like, no, it sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds normal. I think about this stuff with tremendous depth and all the time, because I think it's the most fascinating thing. And I think it speaks volumes to every other aspect of our life. Okay. I think this is why I mean, for me, kink is not just, about having a good fuck or just a fun like party to go to. I really believe that understanding kink and all of its depths and BDSM and these dynamics, we can translate that to every aspect of our daily life, and like even into a more macrocosm, the way that we structure and navigate our lives as a whole. We can learn about how to do all of those things more effectively and with more sincerity and depth by understanding these dynamics, which is just fucking awesome. Like, I just think that's...
Why do you think that correlates so well?
Because I think that BDSM provides such a good framework of creating this microcosm that's controlled in a way of taking the rawest parts of, we'll say, two people and these most vulnerable parts and saying, like, I want to see you in your entirety and I want you to see me and I want to be completely vulnerable so that we can reach these depths that both of us are capable of, but only in the space. And in order to do that, we have to learn how to communicate better than anybody needs to communicate in any other context. We need to learn how to read each other and read each other's body language. We, not just the body language, but like everything. We need to deeply understand that my experience and your experience are vastly different. Even if we're experiencing the same thing at the same time, there are so many factors that change those experiences. So becoming aware of that, but on the same note, also being deeply aware of your own experience while you're experiencing it so that you can affect. It's just like, and of course, I'm talking just about communication here, but I also think interpersonal communication relates to everything.
Yeah. And I think also that communication with yourself and go into the spaces such as fear and disgust or pleasure or how you interact with that and having the opportunity to interact with those things.
Yeah.
And letting that inform yourself and therefore.
Absolutely. It's knowing yourself more deeply than you can in any other space, because you're allowing parts of yourself to come to the surface that otherwise never have that opportunity to. Which is incredible. Like the things that you can learn and like the depths that you can go to. I think that the majority of people navigate through life on a very surface level. And they also think about their own identity as this very compact thing. You know, they're like, I am so-and-so. And I think about things like this. And I move through life like this. But human beings are so complex. And our egos, with just a little bit of poking and prodding, you realize that being one thing is
small construction.
It's absolutely an illusion, and it will shatter into a million facades that we realize we are an amalgamation of so many things, and to think of ourselves as just this one is just a shame at the very least.
It's an injustice and can cause a lot of issues.
Absolutely, yeah,
for
absolutely.
Everything in ourselves.
And if it doesn't cause issues, it's just a missed opportunity.
I think it always causes issues.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, in general, I'm always for the flattening of the ego. I think it's just a better way. Well, I don't want to say better way, but it's
I think it's a better way.
A better way of moving through life.
When did you? Do you think you've ever had to shatter your ego?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, and I think that the times that I have gone a long period of time without it have been my most miserable times. When I identify too much with one version of myself and lose touch with
the range.
Yeah, exactly. And accessing these different parts of me. I remember when I first started doing mushrooms, which is just a great way of shattering your ego. I would often do these trips just on my own, just alone in my bedroom, and kind of have an internal experience. And I had one where I was laying there and I felt like all of these parts of me were sitting around a big table, almost having a board meeting, and like discussing this amalgamation of me that moves through the world. And at some point it got to comforting me, and it was like I don't know, a multitude of versions that were all just as much me as any other, comforting me. But it wasn't just one. It was just like something that reminded me, unless I am acknowledging all of these facets, I can't benefit from the full range, and you'll be imbalanced. I think there's a better way of saying everything I just said, but I think losing the balance and tipping too far into thinking that you're just one thing is dangerous for you and
upsetting, literally
upsetting,
inducing experience for you.
But the more that you talk about these things, the more words begin to fail. I think like the deeper you go,
perhaps. I think a part of me never really understood how to identify. Which probably saves me a lot of grief.
I think that identification is a useful tool for communicating, but not
framework giving and playing, and expanding upon and learning from. But the limitation of it, I've never understood how to live by, and it probably gets me into trouble.
Well, how so?
Such a wide open-mindedness just puts you in a lot of scenarios where you don't understand that there needs to be rules, perhaps, for other people in order to treat you, and etc.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a trade-off, though. I think that
I'm okay with it, because you learn, because you inherently are very survivor-led. You're very adaptable and hell-proof with this start, and you go through all of this shit and you learn patterns, and you just that's a pattern. I'll just try to take that on. But I think it's freeing.
Yeah. Well, because I also think people who do put themselves in these boxes and follow these patterns without really thinking about them get into no less trouble, but the trouble often manifests as an inner turmoil. Yeah, exactly. And whereas I would argue from what you describe that what you get into are situations, but not necessarily trouble. Fun. You get into situations, and then you get to take that situation,
make a podcast out of it.
You make a podcast out of it, exactly. And you get to experience so much broader of an array of life.
Feel very lucky for that.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. I think it's so valuable to not over-identify with the identifiers that we use.
But to learn the patterns that can be helpful or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the next potential identity you'd like to indulge?
Me?
24/7.
24/7.
Yes.
Just put me in a box. Yeah, exactly.
Ship you.
Yeah.
Who knows where?
I don't know, I mean, I feel like I've been really, I've been thinking a lot about how I've been in the matrix, let's say, with life, and like, observing my job and my day to day, and, thinking, is there a different way of doing all of this? Which there is, of course. But is there a different way that's accessible to me of doing all of this right now? Because I don't really like or agree with my day to day, in the sense of, it's not that I don't like my job. I like my job.
Has it just been too long, maybe?
It's not even this. It just doesn't mean anything. And I think that's kind of the thing, is I have a great job. I have great colleagues. I have great benefits, a good salary. But like,
something's missing.
With the cosmic, with the expansive, endless potential of the universe, and the fact that I exist and I'm conscious and I'm able to observe myself, I'm just going to wake up every day and go to a job. And I'm not saying that that's not a necessary part of moving through the world to some degree, but it's just something I've been thinking about. And as far as that relates to kink, it's kind of the same, of like, nothing in this world has ever made me happier than these moments of being in a
box being shipped to who knows where.
Just being in the midst of a beautifully flowing kink dynamic.
Yeah.
Those are my happiest moments, without a shadow of a doubt. I feel in those moments whole. I feel fulfilled. I feel at peace. I feel alive. I feel present. There is no place that is more special to me than in a beautifully functioning dynamic. And so I just desperately want to work towards that being a more central part of my life. But the tricky thing about that is that's not something I can just achieve on my own. It's something that needs to be...
It's relational for you.
It's relational, absolutely. So there's only so much I can do.
I feel like I have to, how I find it easiest is to have two worlds that I'm living.
Yeah.
One that needs to attend to the things that are obvious.
Yeah.
Having enough resources to feed myself, the people that I need to. I have a long-term financial plan. I have all of these very steady things. And then I have this other life where I am consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I feel like in order for the consciousness to have this experience, I need to have some things in place.
Yes.
And so
absolutely.
we do that. But I know what also really actually gets me off at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like insurance so that I can keep indulging.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it can be easy sometimes to accidentally slip into over-identifying with the motor that's just keeping things going.
Yes.
And that life.
Because, parameters promote that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to pay for this. You have to exist. You have to pay the tax. You have to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just now becoming aware of that and trying to think, okay, how can I restructure my life sustainably? And I don't know yet. Figuring that out.
I think it's an ongoing process, especially when you seek stimulation in varying forms. As some people might do.
Some people might.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people might.
So I feel like we've covered a lot, and maybe for today, it's a good place to close. And we haven't even touched on the clowning.
all the things that we were supposed to talk about.
I mean, there are many things, but I think we got to a lot of really good things.
Yeah.
So we can talk about things maybe in another episode.
Yeah.
But is there anything that kind of came up or that you feel like you would really like to say in case I don't get to recording another one for a while?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean,
maybe you want to tell them your dating profile?
My dating profile? Well, God, right now, I think I've made my needs pretty clear throughout this episode.
Okay, all right.
But
Cherry Velour.
Yeah, Cherry Velour.
Google.
If you're find me. No, you know, I think even though we didn't talk about any of the things that we thought that we might,
we did.
We did. It was a really, really interesting conversation, and I will say, what I love about this conversation kind of ties back into what I love about kink as a whole, is that the way I see it, we're never really talking about the surface of what it looks like. Kink isn't about the aesthetics and the iconography that we see of just whips and chains and dungeons and paddles. It's about something deeper for me, at least, and for the people that I really like to play with. It's a way of accessing something so profound and something so deep and eternal and true. And God, how can you not love that?
Yeah, I think I see people experiencing it on a shallow level as some people experience life on a shallow level.
Yeah.
And I feel like they get the hint of the magic, which is why it's such a thing that people gravitate towards.
Yeah.
But I don't think that they're as articulate as you. And so they cannot explain it to themselves or the world around them.
Yeah.
But I guess the more that they see podcasts like this, or that we speak up for ourselves, the more opportunities they have to build that vocabulary. And I was the same. I always had the feeling, but until I found the world, I didn't have a framework.
Yeah.
So come into the depths with us.
Come to the depths. Enter.
So on that note, Google Cherry Velour, dating currently.
Oh my God.
Thank you for listening, and speak to you next time.
Mwah. Bye.